Greetings, family. I welcome you to Live with Chatufa. We are the gospel of the freedom of the Zimbabwean people. We continue to look at issues that are happening in our nation and around the nation as we continue to anticipate and wait for the move of God, because God is in it. A lot of things are happening. Having seen ZANU-PF running down our country, down to the dogs, we have seen quite a brain drain happening in Zimbabwe. An exodus of many people, professional people, people that were supposed to be helping the nation to rise up, people that were supposed to contribute massively to the development of Zimbabwe, have left the country for greener pastures. And because of that, a lot of tensions have risen up, especially in other countries that are surrounding us and even all over the world, over the influx of Zimbabwean people into their nations. One of such nations is South Africa. And South Africa has started to have problems with xenophobia, and we have seen the death of many Zimbabweans being killed, some being burnt alive, and many other disturbing and very disgusting stories that have been happening. So we want to look at the politicking that has been happening, especially in South Africa, where we saw that most of the politicians, especially from the ANC party and other opposition parties, are trying to use the mileage of, for the foreigners, the presence of foreigners in South Africa as a political gimmick and a political campaigning tool. So here on this show, we are going to be looking at how Julius Malema has defended Zimbabwean people from the ANC propaganda, and also some of other politicians who have continued to say that employment in South Africa for the local people is being hindered because of the presence of Zimbabwean people. Very sad for our African brothers. When we look at the association and the relationship that exists between ZANU-PF and ANC, you wonder so much when ZANU-PF remains mum, when their own counterparts in the ANC continue to speak negatively about Zimbabweans, and even fueling up tensions that are leading to xenophobic attacks on especially Zimbabweans and even other foreign nationals. We have never had a comment whatsoever. Even the last time that we had Zimbabweans that were burnt to ashes, we never had any comment that came from ZANU-PF about it, especially or even engagement with their counterparts in ANC to see how they can curb this problem. But what can you expect? ZANU-PF does not care about Zimbabwean people. We are just orphans. We are on our own. Nobody cares about what happens to us. You remember even Robert Mugabe saying Zimbabweans are only those that are in Zimbabwe. Those that are out there, we don't know about them. Exactly. But when it comes to crisis and problems that begin to happen in the country, they start to remember that there are Zimbabweans who are out there. When it is election time, they say only those that are in Zimbabwe will vote. Anyone who is outside is not given an opportunity. But come the drought, we have seen Emmerson Mnangagwa running on platforms and beginning to speak to the whole world, and even extending his begging bowl to Zimbabwean nationals that are in the diaspora to help raise funds to feed the starving people of Zimbabwe. Very, very sad, because the selfishness is just alarming, that you only recognize Zimbabweans in the diaspora when you need to use them. But when there is no such thing, then they are non-existent and their problems are not attended to. We continue to have problems even with diasporans failing to get passports. Imagine in most countries, people that are out there, they have a problem of getting passports. You just have to have a process that's still linked to Zimbabwe and ZANU-PF. Unfortunately, this is very, very sad, because when we look at what has been happening in other countries, or what happens with other nationalities, you find that in the countries that they can go to their embassies and are able to get help in terms of their passports. This is happening for many nationalities that are of different countries. But in our own situation in Zimbabwe, it is not happening like that. Very, very sad. But what can we expect? We don't have a leadership. We don't have a government in Zimbabwe. We just have a mafia that is masquerading as a government. So I would want us to just listen to what Julius Malema had to say in defense of Zimbabwean people over the propaganda that is being used by other politicians in South Africa over the Zimbabwean, or then the issue of foreigners in South Africa, especially Zimbabwean people. So we are going to take a listen to what Malema had to say.
hey, Zimbabwe alijela misebenzi, hey, the foreigner. It's not true. Let me teach you, how do you see if there are jobs? Don't just listen to fools, including these councillors of the ANC, who don't know what is the creation of jobs. The creation of jobs depends on whether the economy is growing or not. Once they say the economy is not growing, you must know there are no jobs. We can put all Zimbabweans in a bus now. You will still not get a job because the economy is stagnant. In South Africa in 1989, we used to, manufacturing alone, used to contribute 24% to our GDP. Today, manufacturing alone contributes 14%, which means industries have reduced from 24% to 14%. We are deindustrializing in South Africa.
There it is. There it is. So there's nothing that is further than the truth. What Julius Malema here is talking about is the truth and nothing else. And you know, politicians, as they do, especially these liberation parties, the moment they discover that they are being cornered, the moment they discover that the terrain now is becoming difficult for them, they will start to clutch on straws and begin to use dubious means and methods to try and stay in power. This exactly is what we are seeing. Have you seen? We've seen what has been happening in Mozambique, where Mnangagwa and the Nyusi are beginning to give Zimbabweans passports, IDs for Mozambique, for them to go and vote in Mozambique. We have seen the ANC inviting ZANU-PF to come and help them in their campaigns because they are feeling the heat. Things are not happening. Things are becoming tough and tense as we go towards the election in South Africa. So they are trying by all means to stay afloat, to stay with their heads above the water, but the situation is bad. The situation is really turned sour, especially for these liberation parties. Their philosophies and their mantras are no longer working because the people of nowadays, the youth of nowadays, the generation of today cannot resonate with all the beliefs that they have. You continue to hear people like Mnangagwa still talking about the war that was fought in the early 60s and in the 70s. And you cannot be telling somebody who is 19 today about war. War does not make sense to them anymore. They want to see economic development. They want to see the nation moving. So when it comes to the issue of South Africa is a very high percentage of unemployment. And when you talk about the foreign nationals, total number of foreign nationals, not only Zimbabweans, black people and even whites in South Africa who are not South Africans, is only 4%. And the 4% is just too little when you compare with the unemployment rate that is in South Africa right now. So if all foreigners, white, black, Indians and the like, are taken out of South Africa, still the percentage of unemployment will remain very high. That's exactly what Julius Malema is talking about in this instance. So we say kudos to politicians like Malema who want to continue to put the record straight. Politicians who say the truth and tell and educate the nation and not just use propaganda and the idea of politicking for the sake of political expedience. This is a sad scenario, but we continue to believe that the younger people that are coming into politics are going to continue straightening up the records and not allow these madalas to continue to lie throughout their political careers and to misrepresent information, misconstrue information, and they want to survive through that. But propaganda, at the end of the day, will not work because at the end of the day, a lot of their propaganda is exposed and people will know the truth. Especially in South Africa, it is very difficult with the dissemination of information, which is very free, and no sabotaging of information like what happens in Zimbabwe. So I'm sure South Africans are well educated, and they also have an opportunity to listen to different divergent views from other politicians. Then they can have a proper decision that they make when it comes to election time. So we are yet to see. The elections are this very month. The heat is rising in South Africa. We are yet to see what is happening. We are just praying that there should not be any violence. Let these elections go through, and whoever wins, whoever is selected by the South African people, becomes the person that has to take over, and the nation has to proceed. Otherwise, this is what we were looking at today it is very, very sad to find politicians taking advantage of the lives of other people. Very sad. But we are praying for a new leadership, a youthful leadership in all countries of SADC and in all of Africa to take over the nations and to make sure that things happen in a different way. Africa is going to be freed. Africans shall start to see progress in their countries once they take out, especially these old parties with the old Madalas and the Liberation War parties. Then we can start to see a new breed of politicians that will take nations forward. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on the show. We'll continue to meet in many other shows that are coming, but always do not forget to bless you, family, till we meet again in the next show.